Hey everybody, welcome to the PVD Horror Podcast. Today we are joined with an iconic cult director, screenwriter, producer, responsible for so many classic horror, sci-fi, softcore, and action films, including one of our favorites, Chopping Mall, which I'm wearing the shirt of today. Of
I see
course,
that.
I am talking about the one and only Jim Wynorski. Jim, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Happy to be here.
I appreciate it, Jim. So now the experience of you going to the movie theaters with your father had a big impact on your life. Can you discuss how that outing influenced your career?
Well, I guess it started when I was very little. I was like 7.
Mm,
And my father worked very hard to keep the family afloat. He was a worker. He worked, 5 days a week and then had to take care of household things on Saturday. But he reserved Sunday to take his son, me, out to different places. And after church, we would get in the car, and my mom would stay at home, and I would go with my dad, and we'd go everywhere. And one day he took me to the movies, and it was the first time I had been in a movie theater in my life. And it was dark, it was scary, and I wasn't a big fan of it because they were running some sort of ghost film.
mm.
And as soon as I saw there was a ghost and everything, I got scared and I said, "Get me out of here." But when I got home, I said, "Well, that was kind of cool. We should go back there when they're playing, a comedy."
Yeah.
And then I realized that in New York TV was running horror movies from the early 50s. And I said, "Well, I'll give it a try." And I started watching anything that showed up on New York TV, from the old Universal horror movies,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dracula and Frankenstein, all the way up to like Roger Corman's The Monster from the Ocean Floor, Man from Planet X.
Mm.
And I became a big fan of those movies. I don't know how it happened. I can see by your collection behind you, it happened to you.
Yeah.
And it looks like Brad, is that your name?
Brandon.
Brandon, I'm sorry.
No,
Looks
you
like
good.
Brandon's got the same thing happen to him. We
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
were all kids watching horror movies
Yeah.
Hmm.
and getting hooked by them. And I don't know, when I hit, I think, how old was I? I was like 27,
Mm.
and I was working in New York at the Science Fiction Book Club. I worked there for 5 years, and it was a good job because I got to read a lot of science fiction and talk about it and sell it. But in 1977, they bought the movie rights to book rights to Star Wars,
Mm.
which hadn't come out yet. And the Star Wars people paid for my trip to Los Angeles to show me all kinds of Star Wars paraphernalia, models, and stuff.
Yeah.
And so they brought me out here for like 4 or 5 days. And I said, "Wow, look at all this place.
Mm.
Yeah.
Not only is it Star Wars, but it's hot chicks, it's Hollywood, it's everything I always dreamed of." So when I got back to New York, I was bitten by the I want to go make movies bug.
Mm.
So I think later that year in August, um, I came out to LA, drove out here, and started looking for work in the film industry,
Nice.
which wasn't easy to find.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's how I started.
That's
There you
awesome.
go.
And
Nah,
next
I
thing
love to always
I
hear
was
the
broke.
background.
I was broke.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can only imagine starting off like that.
But
Hmm.
Yeah.
I started writing for Fangoria,
Okay.
Starlog, and I wrote sometimes I would write 3 or 4 articles per issue.
Huh.
And, that paid like 600, $700. And in 1977 money, that was not bad. Okay.
Yeah.
I was able to pay for my apartment and buy food and survive while I looked for work.
Mm.
And I found some work.
I'm
That's
happy you found some work.
yeah, and that's super interesting too. We're gonna have to go into some of our back magazines and check out some of your articles for Fangoria.
Well,
I didn't
I
know
think
that.
between issue 2
Okay,
and 17 or 18,
Okay.
I'm
nice,
in there
nice.
like sometimes 3 times, and then there's other articles I wrote under it. They changed my name so that it wouldn't seem like the all Jim Wynorski issue. Okay,
Oh, okay.
but I was,
Did you
I
get
was,
to pick the name?
what's that?
Did you get to pick the name, or did they pick it for
I
you?
don't know what they did, but
Yeah,
a lot of my articles still have my name on them, and all I cared about was the check,
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
and I was cashing those. Right.
There you go. Now, Jim, directors and writers often find themselves confined to a single genre. How did you manage to break out the mold and create a diverse range of films?
Well, I like all kinds of different movies,
Mm,
and I was brought up on New York TV, so I saw films like Catwoman of the Moon,
Mm.
Whistle to the Moon, all kinds of wacky movies that played New York television, Kronos, uh, everything, beginning of the end, all these sci-fi movies from the 50s. And so my tendency was to make those kind of movies. But as I continued working, I said, well, let's do a comedy. Let's
Yeah,
do a sci-fi, remake, which is where
mm,
Out of This Earth began.
yeah.
Let's make a gothic horror. So I made The Haunting of Morel, and
yeah.
it just blossomed from there. I ended up doing action movies, westerns, comedies, children's movies,
Yep.
erotic thrillers, you name it, I did it.
Now, you have over 150 motion picture credits. How do you define success at this stage in your life while you're still actively producing films? Like, what motivates you to still do this line of work?
Hot chicks and money.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
I mean, I'm being serious.
Nah, I
Yeah.
feel you.
I mean, I'm about to start Catwoman of the Moon,
No, okay. Hmm.
and it's going to look incredible. I got a new system, which is going to make the film look like something Star Wars and George Lucas would be jealous of.
Hmm.
And
At, at
it's going to have some of the most beautiful women in the world.
at this juncture of your career, if you have a thought like, oh, I want to do such and such film, or I want to remake this film, is it pretty much a go, or is it like, do you get a lot of pushback ever from people, or is it just like what?
I mean, the Catwoman of the Moon's public domain.
Yeah,
Hmm.
There's 18 versions on YouTube and Tubi.
yeah,
So that film's open to the public. Anybody can make it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but when I was a kid, I saw in the TV guide Catwoman of the Moon. And as a 7-year-old, I couldn't wait for that film to show up.
Mm.
I said,
Hmm.
oh my God, science fiction, women, it's going to be just what I wanted.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
And it wasn't. It was the biggest letdown.
Oh,
Okay, go watch it. It's awful.
you're making the films you want to see. That is such like a inspirational thing, because
Well,
so
when I
many
was 7,
times,
it was the biggest disappointment
yeah,
in the world
yeah,
because it didn't deliver what, as a kid, I wanted to see, which was
yeah,
hot chicks fighting and seducing and getting naked in outer space on the moon.
Yeah.
And all it was a couple of girls in black leotards running around trying to kill guys.
yeah.
And they didn't do a very good job of it. And it was awful. And I was very disappointed.
Mhm.
Then they remade it again a couple of years later called Missile to the Moon. And that was awful too. And then they made Queen of Outer Space, which still didn't give me what I wanted, even though that was in color and had Zsa Zsa Gabor and a lot more money
Yeah.
was thrown at it. But still, it didn't give me what I wanted.
Yeah. But Jim, just know you gave us what we wanted. You know what I mean? Hot chicks and boobs also. That's what we wanted growing up.
Yeah, come
And you
on.
delivered. You delivered on that. So
I've
for
been
everybody
delivering
that's
on that for 30 years, my friend.
yeah, no, for everybody that's listening, like he's the man behind like a lot of those Skinamax movies for Cinemax that was
I did
back in the
like
day.
20. I did 20 of those fuckers, you know?
Yeah.
And,
He's the reason why I had the back button on the controller. You know what I mean?
the Hills Have Thighs, The
Yeah.
Witches of Prestwick,
Yeah.
House on Hooter Hill, all those movies
Yeah.
were my ideas.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're
Now, you had the opportunity to work with the late great Roger Corman also. Can you describe how meaningful that experience was, given that he was your idol?
Well, a little backstory. I started working for Herbert B. Leonard, who had
Mm,
produced Route 66 and Rin Tin Tin.
Hmm.
He was a good guy. And he made me a location scout and sent me to Athens for a pilot he was doing called Breaking Away after the bicycle movie. And they sent me to Athens, Georgia, where I forget, oh man, I'm a location manager for 20th Century Fox. You know, this is going to lead to something. Well, it led to me getting fired because someone started making obscene phone calls to the sorority houses on campus. And it wasn't me, but they thought it was me because I was the new guy in town.
Mm-hmm.
And Fox said, get rid of him. And Herbert Leonard said, I won't tell anybody, but I got to let you go. Now, man, I was disappointed. I said, there goes my career. I
mm,
didn't even get the idea. I didn't even make the phone calls. You know, so he bought me a first class ticket back to LA. It was kind of fun because, you know,
Yeah.
I was depressed in first class.
Yeah.
mm,
And I was sitting next to a woman. She said, you look very depressed. What's going on? And I told her that story. And she says, you know, well, my husband knows a producer named Roger Corman.
mm,
And I think I could get a meeting set up with you and Mr. Corman. And I was like flabbergasted.
mm.
I said, well, whatever you could do, please do it. And she took my name and number, called me following day, said, you have a meeting with Roger on Tuesday. And I said, wow. So I went down to see Roger, and he had just lost his publicity guy. They quit, and he needed a publicity guy. And he looked at all the stuff I had done for the science fiction book club and hired me right there on the spot. Offered me a good salary, starting salary. And I took the gig. I said, I'm going to be next to this guy every day.
Mm.
So that's how that relationship began.
That's crazy.
I started doing his. If I hadn't been on that plane,
Yeah.
Yep.
I wouldn't be talking to you right now.
You know, it's so funny because some people disagree with that whole train of thought of like everything happens for a reason. And I don't know if I fully believe it to every extent, but there are certain things that is really hard to argue that it was sort of meant to be, you know?
Wondered what would happen even if I had taken another plane.
Yeah.
But I happened to be on that plane, in
Mm-hmm.
that seat, next to that woman, and got me the meeting with Roger. Roger offered me a gig. I was flabbergasted, as I said.
Yeah.
And I took it because I figured I'd have his ear every day.
Did you tell that woman to like how much you enjoyed Roger Corman movies too? Did she
No, I did
know?
not. I just said,
Yeah, you just left it as
I just said, if you can do it, that would be great.
yeah.
I called her.
Yeah,
I
that's
called her
crazy.
later after I got the job and thanked her immensely and sent her a little gift. In fact, the house sat for her because she had been so kind to me.
Yeah.
And anyway, I worked for Roger for about a year, doing all the publicity for current movies.
Mhm.
He made a movie called Galaxy of Terror. And I went down there on the sets. And I said, I want to write a movie for these sets, which I did. I wrote a movie called Mutant. I said, Roger, you could shoot this movie cheap on the same sets you just built down there.
Yeah.
And he said, let me read it. So he goes to the bathroom, comes out, and he says, Jim, I'm buying this. And we're going to make it. And that's what they did. They changed the title to Forbidden World.
Okay. Yep.
Yep.
And it became a moderate success.
Yeah.
And there was my name at the main titles. And I said, wow, I'm in hog heaven. And
That's
I
amazing.
started to parlay that into other writing gigs.
Yeah.
And then finally I just said, I'll write it, but let me direct it.
Mhm.
And that's how it all began.
Yeah. That's great. And so I believe your second film was Chopping Mall, if I read that correctly.
That's correct.
And you created that for his wife, actually, Julie Corman.
Well, Roger and Julie worked kind of, mutually together.
Okay.
And I think it was Vestron. Remember them?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Classic.
Wanted a film about a killer in a mall. And I think Phantom of the Mall had already come out.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And I got a hold of my writing partner, Steve Mitchell. And I said, let's give him something else. And I had always liked this movie when I was a kid called Gog, which I'm sure you've never seen.
No. Yeah.
Gog, G-O-G,
Mm.
is a science fiction movie, Ivan Tours, from around 1954, about a military complex in the desert that is completely computer controlled. And part of what's there are these robots with tank treads that go around and do manual labor people at the military base.
Yeah.
And the premise then happens to be that there's a Russian spaceship or satellite orbiting above this military complex. It sends down a command to the computer to go haywire. And the robots go haywire along with the computer and start killing everybody. And it's a movie that, again, promises a lot, but delivers nothing.
Sure.
And I said, Steve, we can take that premise. Instead of going deep in the underground, we could go 3 stories up and make it a mall.
Yeah.
And that's how Chopping Mall became.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
It was originally called Robot.
yeah.
Vestron bought it as Robot. Then it became Killbots. And that died at the theater.
Okay.
We did a test screening.
Yeah.
And nobody came. And Roger said, what are we going to do? Let's look at the movie again. So there happened to be a janitor in the screening room changing light bulbs while we were watching the movie. And he was being very quiet and just keeping to himself, just changing those little floor lights that they have in theaters. And anyway, the lights come up and we start discussing the movie. And he just turns to everybody and says, why don't you just call it Chopping Mall? Okay.
Yep.
And Roger looks at me and he says, we're half off is just the beginning.
Oh my God.
And I said, where shopping costs you an arm and a leg. And he said, go make a new poster.
Yeah.
We'll test it out next weekend. So that's what I did. I made a new poster. We tested it, went through the roof.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe because we made no cuts in the movie, made no changes to the movie. A lot of people think it was longer, but it was always a 77-minute movie.
Okay.
A lot of people think I added stuff, but I didn't. I didn't add or subtract anything. It was always a 77-minute movie. And that's because Roger, this is where I started to learn a lot of good lessons, said when we were cutting the movie, make it go fast, make it go fast. Take out anything that stops it from going fast.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
And at first I was reluctant to do that because, oh my God, they're taking that scene out. Okay.
Yep.
But then I said, yeah, that scene doesn't need to be there. It doesn't advance the story.
Yeah.
And just make it go fast. And I've lived by that motto on all my pictures.
Yeah.
Yep.
Don't bore people.
Yeah.
And
Now,
that's what happened.
and from what I understand, it sounds like pre-production of that film, you and Roger Corman had this moment where you went out to lunch and you had expressed just like that lunch, you learned such a wealth of
Yeah,
knowledge.
he said, let's go to lunch. Bring a notepad
Yeah.
and a pen. I said, okay.
Mhm.
So we're having lunch, and he says, okay, I've got a little lessons, a couple lessons for you. And he taught me filmmaking in 2 hours.
Mm.
I still have the pad, so
Yeah.
That's awesome.
and he gave me lessons about how to make movies that you never learn in film school. Because I went to film school and it didn't get me anywhere.
Yeah.
It didn't.
Is there like one thing that you live by in particular, or is it just a mishmash of all the lessons he's
It's a
taught?
mishmash.
Yeah.
But it's good mishmash because if you adhere to these rules, and sometimes Roger doesn't adhere to them. Okay, he made a film called Frankenstein Unbound where he broke most of his rules.
Yeah.
Okay, and what he taught me and was very specific about cutting frames out of a scene, just cutting frames at the end of a scene, getting out of the scene just that much faster, coming into a scene that much faster by taking out.
Mhm.
If someone's walking in the door, start with them already in the door. And things like that. Where to put a camera. How to make sure you never cross the line.
Yeah.
And they're just great rules.
Yeah.
And I wrote them all down. I followed them in order when I was making Chopping. Chopping was made in like 17 days.
Okay.
It was a long shoot because
Mhm.
the mall was only available from 9 o'clock at night until I think around 8 in the morning.
Right.
Mm. Yeah.
So that was like a all night.
Yeah, we had
Everybody's
we had to put
exhausted.
everything away
Yeah.
every night so
Yeah.
that when 9 o'clock hit, we could go out and start shooting.
Okay.
And we, had lunch right there, and then we'd have to start closing down around 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, around 7 o'clock to make sure we were out by 8, which is when the mall opened.
Yeah.
Now you said that Roger he broke his own rules. What does it take for like a filmmaker to break their own rules? Like what has to happen?
Well, for years, he was very adamant about this, that, this, that,
Mhm.
this, that. And then, but he hadn't made a movie in a while.
Okay.
And then he made this movie called Frankenstein Unbound. And I went to see it. I said, "Oh my God, Roger, what were you thinking?" Okay, because he bored people,
Oh, okay.
and I said, "You're breaking your own rules here, buddy."
Mm.
And it was long too. Okay, he had this rule about everything should be 85 minutes.
I so agree with him.
Yeah.
85 minutes.
Yeah.
Two reasons: fast paced.
Hmm.
You can get an 85-minute film on 4 reels, which means you can bust it around for cheap
Yeah.
Yep.
because it weighs less.
Yeah.
Mm.
That doesn't count anymore because they just send these
Sure.
BCP boxes to the theaters to show.
That just highlights the genius of him, though, because at that time, he's thinking not just what the audience is going to want to see, but he's also thinking financially, business minded,
Yeah.
just all around. What a genius filmmaker he was.
He was a very smart guy, and I learned a shitload of new things.
Yeah.
I employ in every picture I make.
Mm.
It's always
amazing.
like, oh, my template is Goldfinger by Guy Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
That was a film I saw when I was 13. And to me, Goldfinger is the template for every action. It's got to open with an action scene, even if it has nothing to do with the movie, and then do a fancy main title, and then tell them what the film's about.
Sure.
You've got.
Okay.
He said you've got 10. Roger said you've got 10 minutes after the main title to explain what's going to happen, which I always did.
Yeah.
Chopping Mall, you had to learn about the robots, so that when they went haywire, you knew what was going on.
Yeah.
But I didn't start with that. I started with a robbery. I started with a guy being killed or neutralized by the robots.
Yeah.
Showed them in action. Did a nice fancy main title, and then described what was going on.
Yeah. Then it was like the mall demonstration scene, right?
Yes.
Where they're, yeah. So just thinking about Chopping Mall, this is something that I kind of think about from time to time, because I mean, we've been talking so much lately about how AI is getting so smart and how it's used for like everything, and also like kind of the fear that people have about how far is it going to go and at what point are humans going to be screwed. And Chopping Mall is essentially a forewarning of all of that shit, right? It's the robots that are so advanced that they end up backfiring on the humans. And
it was very fortuitous.
Yeah.
That was incorporated into the script. But again, you go back and watch Gog.
Yeah.
You'll see it was that is the same premise in 1954.
Yeah.
Okay.
We always talk about like iRobot and movies like that are more modern versions, but like you're exactly right. I mean, these have been stories in sci-fi for ages, and Chopping Mall is just like a great example of it.
But no one's seen Gog. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Nobody's seen it. You haven't.
No.
Right.
Yep. Brandon, right?
Yep.
It is Brandon, right?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Yeah.
Okay. Brandon, you haven't seen it, probably never even heard of it, right?
No. Nope.
Okay, well, you're young. You're like what, 24?
Nah, I wish. I'm 39.
Okay, well, still in all, you're at punk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was it. We took the premise of Gog and turned it upside down.
I mean, I guess the more important thing in all of this is like, this is a storyline that we've been pre-predicting is going to happen for ages, and I just think it's funny that in modern society we just keep ignoring
they
it.
come up with these robots that patrol malls and stores now, and
yeah,
they don't look like the killbots, but they
thank God
do the same job.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
like when I'm in the grocery store, they have that little
Well,
robot
you know
come
what? There
behind
was
you.
one where one ran
Yeah.
over a kid, and I said, "Well, there you go.
Yep.
That's shopping mall."
Next time it's gonna have lasers. Yep. Um, Jim, I want to ask you a question about one of the actresses in Chopping Mall, Susie Slater. She plays Leslie,
Yeah.
and from my understanding, she retired from acting in the 90s. I was just curious, do you know why she retired so early on, and did she ever really get to experience some of the cult status of the film as it's made its
No, no,
its
she
comeback?
disappeared fast.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
My
unfortunate.
my buddy um, Steve dealt with her a lot.
Oh, okay,
I didn't.
yeah,
Okay.
I hired her because she was pretty.
yeah.
She was willing to go topless, and she had a great set of cans. Okay, and but I gotta tell you, I think she didn't care for the movie,
Hmm.
bad mouthing the movie,
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay.
and then I heard she was waitressing at a hotel in Westwood, and that was in around That was around I don't know 90 or 91,
Oh, okay.
and that's the last time I heard her.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's too bad. She really she had to, a face obviously for the screen and just, her appearance was
Well,
known in the film,
sometimes
but
they come and they go.
yep,
Okay?
yep, exactly.
I've been around so long, and I've seen a lot of actresses just come and go.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
still friends with Barbara Crampton and Kelly Maroney.
Yeah, okay.
Awesome.
Spoke to
And I mean, and they are still so active in the horror genre and like
Yeah, I think
doing things.
I'm going to hire Kelly for Catwoman.
Oh,
Awesome.
that'd be good. Yeah,
Yes. Yep.
yeah.
Very cool.
So now I enjoy sequels that depart from the original storyline to the extent. What do you find challenging to create a film without any connections to original material?
Well, that happened a couple of times with me.
Yeah.
Really, a couple of times.
Mm,
The next film after Chopping Mall was Deathstalker 2.
yeah. Yep.
And the first Deathstalker to me was the most stiff, unappealing piece of boredom I ever seen.
Hmm.
But it was successful. Okay. So when Roger Corman said, "I'd like you to make Deathstalker 2 in Argentina," I said, "Sure." He gave me a script. I threw it away the day I got to Argentina. I just took it and I threw it in the waste paper basket. And I said, "I'm going to make my own film." And I hired John Terlesky, who had been in Chopping Mall, to be Deathstalker.
Hmm.
I hired my girlfriend at the time, Tony Naples, to be. I hired Monique Gabrielle because I was getting to be friends with her. And we all went down there to have a fun time, which
Yeah.
we did. Um, but I started making another movie. I don't know if you've ever seen a movie, an Academy Award winning movie called It Happened One Night.
I would have to see like a trailer or something to recall it.
You punks never watch anything other than horror.
That's yeah. No, we do. We
No,
do.
we watch
That's
a lot of
bullshit.
stuff.
You're watching horror movies every night, okay?
I
A
watch
lot.
everything.
There's an Academy Award winning movie
Yeah.
from around 1934 or
Yeah.
35 with Clark Gable called It Happened One Night.
Hmm.
It was a very successful and popular
Mhm.
that you haven't heard of or seen because you're too young and don't like anything but horror movies.
Jim, I'm telling you, we do. I
We love
promise we
everything.
do.
I don't believe it. Anyway, bottom line is, I watched that movie and loved it.
Hmm.
And I told John, I said, we're going to make It Happen One Night in Conan times. And that's what we did. We made It Happen One Night in Conan times.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
And
had a lot of great one-liners in that film. You added so much more to it. Yeah, it was a lot of comedy
we were
driven.
writing
More.
it every night.
Yeah.
It got written at night in the hotel we were at. And then we would type it up the next morning early and give it
Mm-hmm.
to all the participants and go make that scene. And the producers down there they were just shocked because I wasn't following the script.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They called Roger and they said this guy's completely out of control. He's not making the movie that you sent here. And Roger got mad. He flew with his family down to Argentina, looked at the dailies,
Mm-hmm.
and said, "This is fine. Keep going."
Nice. Because if you talk to anyone that has watched either film, they always say the second one's better, you
It
know?
is
So,
better.
yeah.
Even
So,
my humble opinion, it's better
yeah.
because first one's a stiff.
Hmm.
You got to have good characters to make a film appealing.
Yeah.
Monique Gabriel and John were perfect together. They were playing the characters from It Happened One Night. Go watch
Hmm.
it. Really, find it. It's online somewhere.
Yeah.
Go watch it. You'll have a good time, and you'll see the comparison to Deathstroke.
Cool.
Yeah. Now, Jim, you want to get on us about films we haven't seen? I'm gonna tell you one film that I seen that at a young age that I probably should have never seen at the age I was at. I was probably like 8 or 9 years old, and one night I was watching TV and came across Sorority House Massacre 2. So
Well, there you go.
that's a classic right there. And so I always recommend that film to like all my friends. I'm always like, "Have you seen Sorority House Massacre 2?" They're like, "What is that?" I didn't even know they made a sequel. I'm like, "You need to check it out." And then they watch it and they're like, "How the hell did I miss this movie?" You know, so that is a
It's not a sequel to anything, really.
yeah.
To me, I made that film as a secret.
Mm.
Roger and Corman and his wife were going to Europe for 2 weeks, and I said, "Hey, Julie, how about can you finance a movie on the sets that are existing right now down at the stage?"
Mm.
She says, "Yeah, but not. I can't give you too much money." I said, "Just give me enough to make a 7 day." Okay. She said, "Okay, but don't tell Roger." He said, "Okay, I'll keep it quiet." And so I wrote a script called Nighty Nightmare.
Mm.
I wrote it in 3 days. And I sat there at the typewriter at the stage. They were filming something else. I think they were filming Slumber Party Massacre 3 or something like that there.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, so every day I see all these girls coming in and out with their negligees and everything. And I said, well, I could top that. Okay. And so at the end of the week, the film wrapped. And they took all the furniture away. So it was just these sets that were left over without any furniture,
Mm.
which I explained in the movie that they were going to be waiting for the moving truck,
Yep.
that the place would be totally vacant of furniture. And the place looked decrepit. And then I created Orville. I said, I always wanted a character that everybody thought was evil, but who was the good guy.
Yep.
And so I put the casting call out for Orville. Thankfully, Peter Spellos showed up and became Orville Ketchum for me. And he turns that film into a hoot.
Oh yeah, he was great.
And anyway, Roger and Julie get back. The film is editing in kind of in secret at the stage. And Roger drives down to the stage to see somebody about something. And he goes in, he sees blood all over the walls of the sets. And he says, who made this mess in here? And somebody said, oh, that was Jim Wynorski. He was shooting here last week. And shooting what? Okay. And they told him I was making some sort of horror movie. So I got a phone call from Roger. He said, Jim, what were you doing here? And I said, I couldn't lie to him. I just said, I just made a little movie on your sets last week. Julie financed it. What is
Oh my
it?
God.
I said, it's nighty night. And he says, well, can I see it? I said, it's editing right now, but I'll come down and I'll show you what we got.
Mm.
So I show him what we got. He starts laughing because Orville is indestructible.
Yeah.
In all these horror movies, they always have the villain be indestructible. He can take bullets and whatever. I said, well, I want my guy to be indestructible. You can shoot him, stab him, choke him, but he's always coming back. Okay. And he watches it. Roger watches it and he says, I want you to make the same movie again for me. Just make it again.
Mm-hmm.
Use the sets from Corporate Assets, which was this other film he was making on at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, I'll do it. And I brought practically the same cast back, brought Peter back, and we made Hard to Die.
Yep.
And again, it was like an 8-day show. Everybody got laid. There's some very pretty girls.
Yeah.
And I had a great time making it. And so those two kind of went out together. And, everybody wants the Blu-ray with those two titles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I need that.
Yeah, I need
I
it
need.
too. I would like. I've got 35 prints of both films, but I'd sure like a Blu-ray.
Yeah, I would like a Blu-ray too because it's like you can't even get your hands on it. It's like I need like the VHS is out there. But Dave, I'm telling you, when I first watched this movie, I was watching it like late at night, and my mom was in the same room sleeping, so I had to keep looking over, making sure she
Yeah,
was
yeah.
still sleeping. I was like,
That
oh,
film delivers everything a kid wants.
yeah,
I mean, everybody takes a shower.
yeah,
It's got a killer.
yeah,
It's got Ouija boards. It's got demons. It's got everything you could
Everything.
possibly want, and it was done so cheap that I didn't even want to tell you.
yeah.
But I was laughing the whole time I was making.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you also use a trick in that film too. You like use recycled footage from older films
Some
from
Slumber Party Massacre. Yeah.
yep. And use it for a comedy effect. How did you come up with that trick and that idea to kind of like throw that in there?
Well, because you can't make a 85 or an 80-minute movie
Hmm.
in 7 days. You can, but it's going to be shitty.
Yeah.
So, since Roger owned those titles, and they were shot non-SAG, I could pull that footage out and just recut it the way I wanted. So, I think I recut Slumber Party Massacre. There's a whole thing about it at the beginning,
Yeah.
and it added, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 minutes to the movie,
Yeah.
and I had my running time,
Hmm.
which was good. I haven't seen those movies in a long time, so
Yeah.
my recollection is kind of dim.
Yeah. Now, did you have any other sequels planned to direct that was scrapped due to like business issues or anything
Yeah,
like that?
the third Munchie movie.
Okay.
I was going
Yeah.
to do a beach party type movie called Munchie Hangs 10,
Oh, all right.
but because of just commitments to other pictures,
Hmm.
one never got made.
Yeah. And if you had the opportunity to create a sequel to any film, which one would you choose?
Doing one now. I'm doing Catwoman of the Moon.
Yeah, okay.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it.
There you go.
It's a film I wanted to love when I was 7, but it was awful.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Now I want to make it the way I wanted it to be when I
Yeah.
was 7.
Yeah.
Full of hot chicks, full of innuendos, and action.
Yeah.
Maybe Munchie can make an appearance on a surfboard.
No, Munchie. I made 2 Munchie movies. I'm very, very happy with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a product of his time because he's a doll,
Yeah.
an animatronic doll, and nobody will stand for that anymore. They want CGI.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're living in the era of remakes and reboots. Who would be your ideal choice to like remake like Chopping Mall or anything like that? from
Fuck
any.
them. Fuck them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't remake something that's good to begin with.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yep.
That's what we're
Exactly.
saying.
Yeah.
You
But
want
you
to
know what's gonna happen.
remake something that wasn't good the first time, like Catwoman of the Moon. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Have they
So
made any
I
offers
would
to you?
never, I would never remake something
Mm.
that was good the first time.
Yeah. Have they ever reached out to you to try to remake Tropping Mall yet or anything?
Yeah, they have. I told them to fuck off.
That's what I'm talking about.
Nice, Jim. Nice.
I did.
Appreciate that.
I said,
Yep.
first of all, it's it's too late to do a sequel
Mm-hmm.
because of cell phones.
Yep.
Although you could probably justify why they wouldn't work.
Yeah.
But people have cell phones, and it's the malls aren't the center of attention anymore.
Yep.
I got
Right.
a whole bunch of closed malls nearby,
Mhm.
Yeah.
so it's a product of its time. In the '80s, malls were the place to be. Now it's not. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want anybody fucking around with my movie.
Yeah.
There we go.
I agree.
So every time anybody approaches me about that, I give them the finger and say, "Go to hell." You know.
I love it. I love the energy.
Um, Jim, kind of a slight departure from your typical films. I was really blown away to learn that you had adapted an Edgar Allan Poe short story, which you mentioned earlier, Morella,
Yeah.
with the 1990 Haunting of Morella. As a big Poe fan, I like watching different adaptations of Poe films, but I'll admit, like, this feels like a little bit outside of like what a typical film of yours might look like. How did this project come about, and was this something that
Well,
you
I had
felt like
just
was?
I just done a film called Transylvania Twist,
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Yep.
Yep.
and there was a lot of sets for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Roger. I said, what's the idea? What do you think about doing a Poe movie?" I wanted to do it in CinemaScope too, just like he did, but
Mm.
Yeah.
he wouldn't let me. But he said, "Go make one, but don't throw your laughs, don't throw the comedy in." Okay. And I promised I wouldn't. I said, "I'll make one. I'm going to make one very serious. And I'm going to, use it once, because he had made Morella, a version of it in one of his movies.
Okay.
So I said, I'm just going to take that short section that you did and expand it to a full length.
Oh, okay.
And since I was a big Man from Uncle fan, I had just worked with Robert Vaughn. I contacted David McCallum and said, "Would you like to do this movie?" And he said, "Sure." So I ended up working with the Men from Uncle for 2 movies in a row, which was kind of fun.
Hmm.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, you also had the opportunity to work with the iconic Tony Todd and Vampire in Vegas. Can you describe what it was like working with him on set?
He's a prick.
Uh,
He really was. He was a total
mm,
prick. I did 2 movies with him. He was a prick on the first and a prick on the second. Okay.
nah, man.
Not a bad guy, but
Yeah.
always with a problem. Always with a problem. Always with a problem. Always with a problem.
Mm,
And it didn't need to happen. Didn't need to happen.
Hmm.
nah.
I got stuck with him on a picture called Pandora Project, and then I ended up having to have him again on Vampire in Vegas.
Mm,
And I said, I can live with this guy for 2 weeks, okay, and I did. There were certain actors I would never work with again, like Eric Roberts, who's a total, and who else was a prick? I'm trying to tell you, Tanya Roberts, a lot of
oh,
Roberts.
okay.
Anybody named Roberts, be careful.
Yeah. To stay away
Be
from the
careful.
Roberts. Yeah.
Oh my God, it was so bad working with Tanya, drunk all the time. Oh.
Hmm.
Oh, man. Now, you also had a 2009 documentary film called Papatopolis that explored the creation of Witches of Brestwick, showcasing your effort to make films in like 3 days, which released on TerraVision. For everybody that's listening, that's tuning in now, definitely go pick it up from TerraVision. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, how was it?
Well, it's a
You,
fun. If it wasn't me, I love that movie,
oh, okay.
but it is me, so I don't love it. Okay,
Yeah.
but if it wasn't me, I'd say they did a great job.
Okay.
Mm,
And yeah, he was there the whole time. I forgot his name, the guy who directed it, because he it was we were making a movie up in Foreman, California, and we're making I think we were making Witches of Brestwick 1, and
oh, okay.
I was uh, I was going after one of the women in the movie, actually two of them, and and we had Stormy Daniels, and we had
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
good-looking girls, so
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun. Stormy was another bitch and a half, gotta tell you.
Hmm.
Oh man.
So I worked with some good ones. Mostly they're all good,
Mm,
but there's a handful of them that I said never again. Stormy's one.
mm.
She was a pain in the ass.
Now, how did you get the girls that you worked with on set? You know what I mean? How did you get those girls in the film? You know what I mean?
You
How was
call
that?
them up.
Oh, okay.
You say, "I'm giving. This is what I'm paying. This is what I'm shooting. Here's the script. Do you want to do it?"
Okay.
If they say yes, they're in.
Hmm.
I don't
Yeah.
have to audition them because I know they can act.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked with these girls over and over and over. Most of them
Yeah.
I love. Julie K. Smith, Rocky DeMarco, Becky LeBeau, Lisa London.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, great people,
Hmm.
great people. Except there's always an exception,
Sure.
and it's great when they're not there on your set. If they're there on your set, you got to deal with them for 2 weeks
Yeah.
or a week,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a pain in the ass because you got to
Yeah.
bend over to accommodate them.
Yeah.
They think their shit don't stink, and it just if I could if I told you these stories, you'd say that can't be true.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean,
Um, I
Artie
was,
Johnson, remember him from Laugh-In?
yeah. Yeah.
He accused me of killing his dog
Oh
Jeez.
man.
because I wouldn't let him go home early on a
Oh,
on
he's blaming it on you. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
because I didn't let him go home early. His dog died, and he blamed me for killing his dog.
oh man.
I said, "But Artie, I was paying you to be there that day.
Yeah.
I had to finish the movie." Anyway, I don't know if Artie's still with us, and he was a pain in the ass. Tanya Roberts would start drinking
Yeah.
at 8 o'clock in the morning. She
Oh
would
man.
start near beer and then graduate to the hard stuff, like
Yeah.
cursing, just made everybody uncomfortable.
Yeah. I want to ask you about one specific actress that you worked with repeatedly. And hopefully it's good stuff because of how many times you worked with her. But it was the late Julie Strain. She had obviously a really sad passing. I'm just curious if if you had any thoughts about Julie and why
Julie was great.
you
Julie was great. I I
yeah.
I never had a stern word with her. She was always sweet. Um, I never asked her out or anything, but I was always welcome at her house. Sit there by the pool,
Yeah.
watch all the girls go by. It was, and I hired her a lot. She did Sorceress, she
Yeah.
did Bear Wench movies, she did Treasure Hunt. I don't know. She did a slew of Victim of Desire. Anyway, if I start thinking about it, she was in a lot of my movies.
Yeah.
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 It was sad when she passed away.
Yeah. Really tragic the way it happened.
Way too young.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But you know, I
Yeah.
can see them come and go.
Yeah.
Now, Jim, you released Dino Gator back in January. Can you tell us a little bit about that project?
No, I can't.
Okay. Appreciate it. All right. Well, at some point, hopefully we
I'm
hear.
sorry, but I can't talk about that.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Well, when if that opportunity ever does come, maybe we can talk
It'll
about it
never
then.
come. It'll
It will
never
never
come.
come. Never mind. It's totally scrapped.
Don't ask me.
Yep, we
You know,
won't.
ask me about something else. You know,
No, no, yeah,
I'll
we're
answer
good.
almost any question, but I'm not talking about that.
Yeah, no,
No,
you're
okay.
good.
No, I
Jim,
appreciate
actually, we just appreciate your time tonight. This
it. Mhm.
was a really nice conversation. And Jim, I just appreciate just how much of your career is made out of like, I want to make the version of that movie that I want to see, that I always wanted to see.
Mhm.
So I mean, I think that's super inspirational for upcoming filmmakers or just for anyone. Like, just if there's something
I
that
would
you want to
say
do,
every
do it.
movie I make, I try to make for me.
Yeah.
Okay. I try to make it for me so that I'll enjoy it if I watch it again. Okay. 10 years later. Okay. And sometimes I do. I take one out and say, well, let's take a look at this. And sometimes I see things I should have done, but most of the times I enjoy these things because at the time I wanted to make them good.
Mhm.
I wanted to make them as best as I could for the money. And usually the money was very short. So I was always, but I've done a shitload of movies.
Yeah. Some
And
classics.
Yeah.
I'm up at 172.
Yeah. That's impressive.
172. I don't know.
Just think about that. That's like,
Mhm.
how many movies does that average a year? Like, I'm not going to do the math, but that's
I
crazy.
started in 1981.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's probably 3 movies a year. I don't know.
Yeah.
I
That's
don't
not
know.
bad.
Who knows?
It's awesome. It's awesome. Like you're living the life that, so many people would love to live. Just
Well,
doing
it
doing
keeps
what
me
you
in
want.
touch with hot chicks and it keeps my bank account full.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And again, that's my theory of living. Okay.
Yeah.
I does it involve making some money, and does it involve hot chicks? But the answer is yes on both.
Then you're in.
Okay.
Go forward.
Yeah. Okay. Those are words to live by. Thank you for doing this with us, everybody. We hope you enjoyed listening to Jim tell us all about his career. Jim, thanks again for joining
I
us.
think I bored people. I really do. But what the hell? It's your
You don't bore us because
No.
these are the films that we could talk about all day long. So
I will enjoy them.
we
Thank
will.
you, fellas, because it was a fun trip
Awesome.
down memory lane, and or
Yeah.
memory lane is like I like to call it.
Yeah.
So have a good time, and maybe we'll do it again in the future.
All right. We
Definitely. Thanks,
appreciate
Jim.
that. And everybody listening, we'll see you next week with another episode. Have a great night.